Maha-Bharata Part 1, Chapter 30. Krishna visits the Pandavas. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The Pandavas continued to dwell in Kubera's abode for 4 more years, and in that celestial atmosphere they hardly felt the time at all. One day, Arjuna and Bhima approached Yudhisthira, speaking with him privately, and it was Bhima who said, "O king of the Kurus, in order to make good your vow, we have restrained ourselves and not killed the sons of Dhritarashtra. Rather, we have lived for 11 years in the forest, deprived of our inheritance. And these past 4 years have not been difficult. But the time is now approaching when, in accordance with your promise, we will need to enter some habited region and live incognito. Let us therefore leave this mountain and descend once again to earth. I and Arjuna are determined to punish Duryodhana, but we fear that if we remained on this high plateau of the heavenly Gandhamadana, we might forget the miseries the Kauravas have inflicted upon us, and this would only weaken our determination. Therefore, we desire to leave now. We brothers, assisted by the infallible Krishna, will surely help you, Yudhisthira, to regain your kingdom. And we all desire your welfare and long to encounter your enemies in battle." Yudhisthira agreed that it was now time to depart. Along with Draupadi, the brothers visited the various groves and lakes on Kubera's abode one last time, offering their respects and saying farewell. Yudhisthira then prayed to Gandhamadana mountain. "O Lord of mountains, we are ready to depart. Please grant that after we have conquered our enemies and recovered our kingdom, we may once again see you at the end of our lives." Yudhisthira was thinking of the time when, after ruling the kingdom, the Pandavas would finally retire in order to perform asceticism and thus gain spiritual emancipation. Surrounded by his brothers and brahmanas, Yudhisthira then began the march down the mountainside. Bhima summoned Ghatotkacha and his followers, and they again carried the Pandavas' party over the difficult mountain passes. The Pandavas were sorry to leave Kubera's abode, but as they gazed back at its sublime beauty, their minds were delighted. Soon, the brothers arrived at Badarika Ashram. After being greeted by the sages, Yudhisthira dismissed Ghatotkacha, choosing to continue the downward journey on foot. After remaining 1 month with the Badarika sages, they set off toward Subahu's country. They met Subahu and spent 1 night with him, before proceeding toward the forest Vishakayapa. As they traveled, followed by their porters and servants, the Pandavas saw charming woodlands, lakes, rivers, and fields. They stopped each evening at dusk and camped wherever they were, preparing a meal from simple forest fare. Gradually, they reached Vishakayapa, still within the Himalayan range, just as the monsoon season was approaching. They decided to remain in Vishakayapa until the rains had passed, and then they would return to Kamyaka. On the first day of their stay at Vishakayapa, Bhima went to explore the area. Armed with a bow and sword, Bhima wandered at his pleasure through the woods, which were frequented by Gandharvas and Siddhas. The trees rang with sounds of exotic birds and bore fruits and blossoms in all seasons. Bhima saw clear rivulets flowing from the mountains, creating large transparent lakes filled with lotuses. Wild boars rushed at Bhima, and he killed them each with a slap. Bhima also slew numerous buffaloes and deer, piercing them with his sharp arrows. Bhima possessed the strength of 10,000 elephants, and Bhima sportingly uprooted and broke many large trees, clearing areas where rishis could later dwell and perform sacrifices. He struck his arms and roared exultantly as he roamed about. Elephants and lions fled out of fear as they heard the roars of Bhima. Bhima, ever proud, devoid of fatigue, filled the skies with his shouting. He crushed mountain peaks by kicking them. Ranging along the mountainside, Bhima saw large serpents retreat into their caves as they heard Bhima approaching. Bhima pursued them along the rocky plateaus. Suddenly, Bhima came upon a terrible-looking serpent resembling a hill. The serpent lay coiled at the mouth of a great cave, entirely blocking its entrance. Its skin was yellow with black spots, and inside its yawning mouth were 4 fangs. As the snake glared about with its copper-colored eyes, its forked tongue licked the corners of its mouth. Bhima stopped and gazed at the serpent. It looked like a grim destroyer as it lay there hissing as if to reprimand him. As Bhima came closer, the snake suddenly seized him and entwined its coils around Bhima. Bhima felt his strength draining from his body, and despite his efforts, Bhima was unable to extricate himself. Bhima trembled and fell unconscious for several minutes. As he returned to consciousness, Bhima considered his predicament. Who was this being? How had it succeeded in overpowering him? Again, Bhima exerted himself, but found that he was unable to move. Clearly, this was not an ordinary snake. Bhima decided to ask the creature about its identity. "O best of serpents, kindly tell me who you are and what you will do with me. I am Bhimasena, son of Pandu and the brother of Dharmaraj. With my bare hands alone, I have slain in battle countless lions, tigers, buffaloes, and elephants. Why, not even the celestials can stand against me. So how is it then that you have succeeded in overpowering me? Is it by virtue of a particular science, or is it because of a boon that you possess such power? O mighty armed one, I have been hungry for a long time. Therefore it is by good fortune that you have arrived here. You must be the food ordained for me by the gods. Listen now as I explain how I came to live in this serpent body. My name is Nahusha, and I am a royal sage. After attaining heaven, I was cursed by Agastya Rishi and fell to earth as a snake. Thus you are my descendant, O hero. But that will not stop me from eating you. Whatever falls within my grasp during the middle of the day, whether it be a cow, a buffalo, or even a human being, becomes my next meal. Agastya promised that whomever I seize will lose its strength. Thus, you have been overcome by virtue of that sage's power. Agastya also told me that I would be freed from his curse when someone could answer my questions about the relationship between the soul and the Supreme Being. Thinking of Krishna, Bhima replied, "O mighty creature, I am neither angry nor do I blame myself for this calamity. Sometimes a man may succeed in his endeavors for happiness, and sometimes he may fail. Certainly the results are not in one's hands, and therefore one should not lament for one's misfortune. Who could ever be superior to destiny? Destiny is supreme, and exertion made for material gains is useless. I do not grieve for my own impending death, but I feel sad for my brothers and mother. They depend upon me, and surely they will be deprived of strength and energy when they discover what has happened. And Duryodhana surely would rejoice." Meanwhile, back at the Pandavas' camp, Yudhishthir was perceiving ill omens. Jackals howled, and the dreadful Vartaka bird, with its one leg, one wing, and one eye, circled overhead. It screamed and vomited blood. The wind blew furiously, and the four directions seemed to be ablaze. Yudhishthir felt his left eye and left arm trembling, and his heart palpitating. Yudhishthir looked about the ashram, and not seeing Bhima, Yudhishthir asked Draupadi, "Where is my powerful brother?" Draupadi replied that Bhima had been out for quite some time. Alarmed, Yudhishthir decided to go after him personally. After instructing Arjuna to guard Draupadi and the twins to protect the Brahmanas, Yudhishthir began to search for Bhima in the forest. Following his footprints, he soon found the smashed trees and the beasts that Bhima had slain. Yudhishthir also saw a trail of bushes which had been blown over by the wind coming from Bhima's body as he ran after the forest game. Yudhishthir moved as quickly as he could and soon came to a rough place where Bhima's tracks seemed to end. The ground was dry and full of thorny bushes, stumps, and gravel. Strong winds gusted around tall, leafless trees. Yudhishthir began to make his way up the steep incline toward the plateau above. Yudhishthir sensed that Bhima was nearby, and so he scrambled up the slope. Soon, Yudhishthir came to the serpent's den. There, at the entrance to the cave, Yudhishthir found Bhima wrapped in the serpent's coils. Yudhishthir was amazed to see Bhima held by a snake, and so he asked, "Who is this best of serpents, with a body as big as a mountain? O son of Kunti, how have you fallen into its clutches?" "O worshipful brother, this is the royal sage Nahusha in a serpent form, and he plans to eat me. O great serpent, kindly release my brother. We shall satisfy you with some other food, O energetic one." "No, I will not release him, for I have obtained this son of a king for my food. You should leave this place, or else I will eat you tomorrow. The sage Agastya has granted me a boon that whoever comes within my reach shall become my food. Now you are also within my reach. I have not eaten for a long time and will not give up your brother, nor do I want any other meal." Feeling pain to see Bhima's plight, Yudhishthir thought carefully. This being was not actually a snake, but a great king and an ancestor of the Pandavas. Yudhishthir had heard of Nahusha many times. He had performed numerous sacrifices and had become emperor of the earth before finally going to heaven. But after ascending to the higher regions, he must have been cursed to fall down again. Perhaps there was some condition to the curse. If Nahusha could be freed from his serpent form, then Bhima could be released. Oh, my dear snake, under what conditions will you free my brother? I was intoxicated with the pride of wealth and power, and I once insulted the Brahmanas. I was thus cursed by Agastya and brought into this miserable state. But Agastya stipulated that I could be released when I found a man capable of answering my questions on spiritual subjects. This, then, is the only way by which your brother can be freed. Answer my questions and free both Bhima and myself, O sinless one. Ask whatever you will, O serpent, and I will try my best to answer. Yudhisthira was always glad to have the opportunity to speak about spiritual matters. For him, this forest exile had provided a welcome opportunity to hear from rishis and engage in a deep study of scripture, free from the pressures of state affairs. Yudhisthira had acquired an almost unrivaled knowledge of the Vedas. Yudhisthira listened attentively as Nahusha began speaking. Fixing his narrow eyes upon Yudhisthira, the serpent said, "How can we recognize a true Brahmana, O king? And what is the highest object of knowledge?" The Brahmana is characterized by the qualities of honesty, purity, forgiveness, self-control, asceticism, knowledge, and religiosity. The highest object of knowledge is the supreme Brahman, which can only be known when one has transcended all material duality. O king, I am doubtful. The qualities you have attributed to Brahmanas are also found in other classes of men. And besides that, how can anyone exist without experiencing happiness and distress, which is the basis of all duality? Yudhisthira smiled, for it seemed the snake was already quite knowledgeable and was only testing him. Yes, if one finds these qualities in any man, then one should be known as a Brahmana, no matter what one's birth may have been. Happiness and distress in relationship to material objects can be transcended while still being experienced in relation to the Supreme. For material emotions are but perverted reflections of original spiritual feelings. Nahusha was satisfied with Yudhisthira's answer, and so he asked him to elaborate further. What was the use of dividing society according to caste if such divisions meant nothing? Actually, the intermixture of social classes now makes it difficult to ascertain a man's class, my dear Nahusha. So only by examining one's actual qualities could a man's class be known. Thus, society should be divided on that basis only, and not simply on the basis of one's birth. O king, clearly you are acquainted with superior knowledge. How then can I devour your brother? It was obvious to Yudhisthira that Nahusha was himself highly learned. After all, he had once ruled the earth and ascended to heaven after being instructed by the sages. Yudhisthira thought it would be worth making inquiries from such a personality. So, folding his palms and standing before Nahusha, Yudhisthira said, "Oh yes, I too regard you as one possessed of superior knowledge. Now, please instruct me, if you will. By what acts can one attain heaven? Oh, Bharata, in my opinion, one can reach heaven by giving charity to brahmanas, or by being kind and gentle in one's speech, by truthfulness, and by remaining non-envious towards all living beings. Now tell me, Nahusha, which of those acts do you consider the best, and what constitutes non-envy? Yes, each of these items can be considered superior or inferior depending upon the circumstance. So one must therefore understand the ultimate goal of life in order to know how to act properly at all times. And this you have already explained, O king. All acts and knowledge should be aimed at achieving the supreme. Non-envy means always desiring the welfare and advancement of all living beings rather than to exploit them for one's own pleasure. In particular, one should desire the spiritual progress of others and act to assist them in that progress. O Nahusha, how does the soul accept the material body? Atman, the soul, receives bodies according to his or her own behavior. Thus, one transmigrates life after life, impelled by either sinful or pious acts, sometimes going to heaven and sometimes moving about in the body of an animal. Final liberation is attained when one comes to know Brahman, the supreme absolute. Yudhishthir nodded. The snake's answers were in accord with what Yudhishthir had learned from the rishis. Clearly, Nahusha had deep spiritual realizations. How then had he become a snake? Nahusha replied, "By sacrifice and asceticism, I became so powerful that I coursed through the heavens on a golden chariot. I became emperor of the wide earth, and even the Gandharvas, Yakshas, Rakshasas, and all the inhabitants of the three worlds, even the rishis, paid me taxes. Such was my power that I could withdraw the energy of anyone simply by looking at them. But then my pride overwhelmed me, and I lost my good sense. My knowledge became covered by the ignorance which is born of pride. I ordered the Brahmin sages to draw my chariot, and thus I offended them. One day, while in heaven, I touched Agastya Rishi with my foot. The sage cursed me, and I fell to earth, my body changing into that of a serpent. And so, in accord with Agastya's words, you have now freed me from that curse. My discussion with you has reawakened my knowledge. I now realize that my real interest lies in cultivating Brahminical qualities and spiritual knowledge, not in material status or opulence." Then Nahusha released Bhima, and his serpent body immediately fell and died. From out of it, the two brothers saw a glowing celestial figure emerge, wearing golden ornaments and beautiful garlands. Nahusha bowed before the Pandavas and then rose into the sky and disappeared. Yudhishthir and Bhima then returned to the ashram and recounted the incident to the others. And when Yudhishthir had finished, the Brahmanas reprimanded the now sheepish Bhima for his rashness in having challenged the serpent and warned him not to be so foolish again. Trinadapi Sunichena Tarar Iva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Hari Harenama 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 Eva Kevalam Kalau Nasyiva 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 Gatir Anyapa Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. The following is an excerpt from the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which gives us more information about the history of Nahusha. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, encouraged by the words of the sages, Indra had killed Vritrasura, and when he was killed, the sinful reaction for killing a Brahmana, known as Brahmahatya, certainly took shelter of Indra. Following the advice of the demigods, Indra killed Vritrasura, and he suffered because of this sinful killing. Although the other demigods were happy, Indra could not derive happiness from the killing of Vritrasura. Indra's other good qualities, such as tolerance and opulence, could not help Indra in his grief. And that was because Indra could see personified sinful reaction chasing after him, appearing like a Chandala woman, a woman of the lowest class. She seemed very old, and all the limbs of her body trembled. Because she was afflicted with tuberculosis, her body and garments were covered with blood. Breathing an unbearable fishy odor which polluted the entire street, she called out to Indra, "Wait, wait!" Indra first fled to the sky, but there also he saw the woman of personified sin chasing after him. This witch followed Indra wherever he went. At last, he went very quickly to the northeast and entered the Manasa Sarovara lake. Always thinking of how he could be relieved from the sinful reaction for killing a Brahmana, Indra, invisible to everyone, lived in that lake for 1,000 years within the subtle fibers of the stem of a lotus. The fire god, Agni, used to bring Indra his share of all yajna sacrifices. But because the fire god was afraid to enter the water, Indra was practically starving. So, as long as King Indra lived in the water, wrapped in the stem of the lotus, Nahusha was equipped with the ability to rule the heavenly kingdom, and this was due to his knowledge, austerity, and mystic power. However, Nahusha, blinded and maddened by power and opulence, made undesirable proposals to Indra's wife with a desire to enjoy her. And Nahusha was also cursed by a Brahmana and later became a snake. Because Nahusha molested Indra's wife, Shachi, she complained to Agastya and other Brahmanas. The saintly Brahmanas cursed Nahusha to fall from the heavenly planets and be degraded to the status of a python. In the Krishna Leela, Krishna told the liberated kings who were once captured by Jarasandha that Haihaya, Nahusha, Vena, Ravana, Naraka, and many other rulers of demigods, men and demons, fell from their elevated positions because of infatuation with material opulence. When Nahusha temporarily assumed the post of Indra, he became puffed up, and out of pride, Nahusha ordered some brahmanas to carry him in a palanquin to an illicit meeting with Lord Indra's chaste wife, Sachi. The brahmanas then made Nahusha fall down from his position and become a python. In the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the chapter known as the Bhumi Gita, Mother Earth says, "Great kings, including Nahusha, as well as many other demons and kings, who all possessed great powers of control over others, and who were all full of knowledge, heroic, all-conquering, and unconquerable, nevertheless, although they lived their lives intensely trying to possess me, Mother Earth, these kings were subject to the passage of time, which reduced them all to mere historical accounts, and none of them could permanently establish their rule over me."